Hey, good morning, everyone. We're all here getting settled. Thank you so much for being here. It is March 7th at 9 o'clock, and this is our policy meeting. We have a really packed agenda, which we're excited about. I just want to name two things. We're going to make a few shifts in the agenda to honor our staff members who are here to share information with us so they can get back to buildings and classes. I also want to name that on here, we are not reviewing, correct me if I'm wrong, Megan, we're not, there are a lot of items on here that are just in first review, which just for the sake of recording and community means like this is the first step to discussion. So I know some of the topics on here when we read them could be like, why are those already moving forward? At least at first I had that impression when I looked through, and then I realized at where they are in the stage of policy that this is the first step in us having robust conversations to, as a group with community, craft our best proposal and work moving forward. So I'll kick it to you, Megan.
All right, good morning, everyone. My favorite day of the month, Policy Committee. We are, as Ms. Shurak introduced, going through a number of things today, and I'd also say a good percentage of them are repeats. We've talked about a few of these already, and they are also, for the most part, administrative regulations, which means they don't go through the first and second read of the board, but we always acknowledge the board's input is important and that it's reflected typically in the minutes of the regular business meeting. And as was also mentioned, what we'd like to do as a continuation of our conversation around activities and athletics in our school system. Last month, we had our activities and athletic directors here to talk about the high school program, and today we have some special guests from our middle school team to talk about sort of what middle school activities and athletics looks like. So we can, the point being, we're not going to have, I mean, it would take a long time to go into depth about every single activity. So we want to start with an overview so that it will inform our conversations around the new student activities AR that's being proposed, so that everyone has an opportunity to kind of come to the conversation with a starting framework that's common. So we all thought that would benefit everyone's experience here. So without further ado, I'd like to invite our middle school team from representing Bala-Kenwood, Jeff Hunter, principal, and Dave Lloyd, activities and athletics director. And you all actually can sit down, so it doesn't have to be so formal. You can use if you'd like, and as well as Joe Devine, assistant principal at Welsh Valley, and Jim Scott, the activities and athletics director for both Welsh Valley and Black Rock Middle School. So however you're most comfortable with, but there you go. Please proceed. Thanks.
Hey, good morning, members of the board, community members. Wanted to start by thanking Dr. Lloyd, who is our athletic director at Bala-Kenwood Middle School, who works tirelessly, and whose students are probably missing out on a great history lesson right now, so we'll try to be brief. Many of our students at Bala-Kenwood begin their school day prior to the bell ringing and end their school day well after the afternoon bell closes. We offer a variety of clubs and extracurricular activities along with sports, which Dr. Lloyd will speak about momentarily. Our current population of 781 students has a participation rate of 66%. This means a majority of our student body is invested in something outside of just the day-to-day courses that make up middle school. Finding a bond with your school and peers is something we take very seriously across all three middle schools. It is not uncommon for our students, many of their fondest memories, to be a relationship they forged while involved in participating in an extracurricular activity, and we believe it fosters a key component of the whole student experience. We like to tell our community there's something for everyone at Bala-Kenwood, whether it be music or arts, science Olympiad, a traditional extracurricular such as student government that's been around for 80 years, or something as eclectic as the Geekery and Gaming Club. We strive to find something that will pique the interests of our unique student body We offer 27 extracurricular activities and 25 sports. We begin by holding an activities fair during the first 3 days of school, where the students can visit each booth, learn about the activity and the commitments, along with conversing with a student or staff sponsor of that activity. To keep parents informed throughout the year, we post our daily announcements, which often feature dates, times, and accomplishments of our extracurricular activities, including sports and clubs. This way, both the student body and the parent community have access to the same exact messaging every single day. Finally, we highlight our activities and student accomplishments in our weekly SMORE newsletter and provide essential links for our parent information page. It's our goal to have as much of the student body as possible included in extracurricular activities. Oftentimes, counselors try to team up our new students who arrive, who are new to the district, with an extracurricular activity within the first week, just to have them try it of their arrival at Bala Cynwyd. Now I'd like to ask Dr. Lloyd to touch base on our PIAA sports programming at Bala Cynwyd.
Good morning. Fortunately for us in PIAA, at the middle school level, at Bala Cynwyd, we have roughly 25 athletic teams that are made up of 7th and 8th grade students. We have 2 teams for each particular sport. The only exception to this is cross country, which we have opened to 5th, 6th, and 7th and 8th grade for the fact that it is not a PIAA recognized sport, but a club. And therefore, to try and get more students involved in the athletics and activities part of our program, we've made that available to them. Fortunately for us, we have had, as Mr. Hunter has said, roughly about 66% of our student body involved in those. We expect that with spring sports to increase to roughly about 70%, with our track and field teams being the most robust out of them. Our staff that make up our sports programs are mostly from the buildings themselves, from the high school themselves, or from the community, who are thoroughly interviewed to make sure of their qualifications and to provide the best opportunity for students to learn the sport and grow. At this point, in addition to this, we're looking to try and expand. We listen to student feedback to see if there are any new programs that we can provide for them based on their interests. At the moment, we're in a pretty solid place. Thank you.
I would just echo a lot of what Mr. Hunter said. Our participation rate is similar. We also anticipate an increase closer to 70 to 75%. And that's just individual. There are students that participate in multiple, so we tried to kind of weed that information out. We do like to offer everything for everybody whenever possible. Just this year, we started a pickleball club because a student in 7th grade was really into it, and he was able to find a teacher who was willing to co-sponsor that, and we were able to find court time in between the winter and the spring season. So again, we really do our best to try to find or present as many options as we can, and when we have something that students are interested in that we don't have currently, we really do work to try to find something, find a way to implement those.
And just echoing the sentiment of Mr. Hunter, Dr. Lloyd, Mr. Devine, we take all of this very seriously and try to make sure that we find every avenue possible for our students. So in the same vein as Bala Cynwyd, Black Rock, and Welsh Valley also engage in activities, open houses, we utilize sometimes our I&E and efficiency to evaluate the need or the desire to have new clubs and activities. So for example, outside of the realm of athletics, pickleball being one, at Black Rock, for example, we have a fairly large student group that is interested in a movie club and just getting into the granular aspects of movie making and design. And so we've had an opportunity in certain I&E efficiency groups to bring those students in. We can evaluate what the level of student interest is through those opportunities and see if we have supervision that's available. So just some of the different ways we evaluate even beyond the activities fairs at the beginning of the year. For Black Rock, we have a student population of approximately 1,078 students. We have a present enrollment rate in activities and athletics of about 72.5%. We anticipate that number will go up to about 80% by the end of the year. At Welsh Valley, we have a student population of approximately 789 students. The participation rate currently is around 72%. We anticipate that rate will go up to about 77% by the end of the year. Most of those are dual or triplicate enrolled in activities and athletics, but we have a solid participation rate across 3 sections of the year, so fall, winter, and spring, of about 30% or so. So we do see kids who do single activities, and we do see an uptick as the year goes on. But I think we do a very nice job, and I'm proud of the work that we do at BC, Black Rock, and Welsh Valley of getting every kid a touch point so they can be involved in our community.
I'd like to add thank you again for being here and acknowledge the work that you all do collectively to make this, these programs work for kids. I know you had a chance because we talked about the high school presentation. I just wanted to acknowledge that operational piece of all of this. Mr. Scott and Dr. Lloyd are both full-time teachers, and so the responsibilities that they hold to direct athletics are on top of those duties. So I just want to acknowledge that that's a little bit different than what we have set up at the high school. And those operational pieces that were described, I think you saw what Jason Stroop talked about, just the nature of all the different components of making all of these come to life. You have transportation, operations, custodial, nursing, support for students that need support. I'm just asking, since you saw that, like, that's true for your experience as well, right? And so that's the other part of the puzzle, and I just wanted to bring light to that again today, because it's, you know, we celebrate all of the outcomes for kids, but to do it well and at a high level and offer so much variety, it does take quite an effort in terms of time and resources to do that. So I just wanted to have you acknowledge that that's also true for your experience. Unless it's not, and then tell me I'm wrong. It's okay to disagree with me.
No, I mean, I'd be happy to jump in. It certainly is, and I think Dr. Lloyd and I take pride in having strong working relationships with our operations department across the board, our faculty, staff, our community members, to make sure that it can happen and happen seamlessly. Whether it's through, like Mr. Hunter said, daily communications home, utilizing the systems that we have, but additional communication with respective HSAs to make sure that families are aware, but also to make sure that we are acknowledging as we go through these processes the efforts of our bus drivers who, you know, are there and working with us every afternoon to make sure that our kids don't have a barrier to entry with respect to transportation to and from our activities and athletics. Whether it's with our grounds crew that make sure that our fields are maintained and up to par in a fashion that really is unparalleled, I think, throughout the Central League at the middle school level. Custodial staff that is there deep into the night to make sure that our students and our families are given the best possible experience. I would say near a high school level experience at all 3 of our buildings in terms of cleanliness, upkeep, you know, accessibility, things of that nature. So it takes a fair amount of effort, but I think the coordination, the cooperation of everybody involved is just fantastic.
And I'll also give out a shout out to our nursing staff and our secretarial staff, administrative staff. We have, I know at Welsh Valley, and I think it's true across all 3 buildings, we have one secretary that is really devoted to the sports. And when the fall and the spring start, it is a monumentous task that she handles outstandingly.
Turn it over for some questions.
Okay. I was just going to say, Jeff gave you Mr. Hunter gave you a shout out. I'm sure Dr. Lloyd, last night you were behind the scenes and all involved. BC had their volleyball staff tournament, and I just am raising it up as an example of the amazing work and the culture you all have built, and I'm positive there's examples at your school, and so thank you. The one question I had, and I just know from being able to learn from your leadership, Dr. Hunter, you send out the SMORE and have access to the updates, which is really helpful then to know what's going on. Does that happen across the middle schools, or it depends in terms of communication?
We have a parent website that we link our announcements to every day. It's also full of variety of information that we deem important about the school day, about after school, things coming up. But we do link our announcements every day to it so that parents can have access to it and stay on top of it, because we know sometimes 11 and 12-year-olds, may miss an announcement, especially early in the morning or late in the afternoon.
And I'd say that holds true at Black Rock as well. There's additionally a Schoology hub that students and families can access in addition to dismissal slides. And as I noted earlier, consistent contact between the athletics department, which also ultimately ends up handling overflow from activities for announcements at the middle school level by the administrative staff. So Kim O'Neill and Ray DeMora, who do fantastic jobs at Welsh Valley and Black Rock respectively.
Couple questions. So, and this is my experience, so correct me if I get this wrong, but I was always under the impression with both my kids that when they were at Welsh Valley and all their middle schools, it's really open. Like, this is the time in middle school where you have like a lot of choices and there's very low bar and threshold to do things. Is that correct?
The goal for students is to try and give them as much access to as many different experiences as possible, because this is really the opportunity for them to expose themselves to as many different clubs and athletics as they can before they get to a high school schedule where their schedule really condenses and they start to become more specific in terms of the clubs and activities they want to be involved in. So yes, this is come try it out, see what you like, see what you don't like. And that's the expectation of most coaches and club advisors.
Yeah, and I just wanted to repeat,
Yeah.
piggyback off what Dave said, and I'm sure it's true at the other schools. We have very few sports that actually have tryouts. I think there maybe one or two, just because of the volume of kids coming through. But we do try to make it an experience where the kids get an opportunity to play.
And I'd also say I think that it's reflected in the duplicate and triplicate enrollment in activities and athletics that we see, which is, I think, fairly high. That we are giving as many opportunities as possible for students to engage in anything that suits them, but also try things that maybe are outside of their comfort level as well. And in addition to that, I think the focus on giving them those opportunities and allowing them the chances to see if maybe we're offering something we need to offer something that maybe they're interested in, I think, is something that's kind of unique to middle school at times.
It's an important piece that we try to do in terms of our counselors, our administrators, and our faculty. Literally try to find every kid the minute they walk in the building and find something that they can gravitate to that makes them feel like they're a part of our culture. So if you're a new student, one of the first things that we say is we take them through the tour. Tell us the activities that you're interested in. Tell us the things that you're involved in. Oh, you've never done that before? Let me introduce you to the coach directly, so this way you can find someone, a friendly face that you see on day one that hopefully makes them feel a part of our fabric.
And I think that's unbelievably fantastic, because you're right. Some kids get a million of pre-sports in like elementary, and their parents are taking them to soccer and all these things. Sometimes it's not a good experience when they're 5 years old, and then they go back to it when they're in 5th grade, and they're like, "Wow, this is a great experience." So I also do appreciate that track and field is open for all the grades. Like, that has been really helpful, because you can go at your own pace. Like, it's an individual sport and a group sport, so it gives that exposure and like a light level. I do like trail running, so I may be biased on that.
Said the runner.
But I think it's wonderful. I guess the question I have, and I also love, like, this is not just about sports, this is about clubs. Mm-hmm. Some kids are not going to be into that, or they're doing it as a side activity. Do you ever look at all 4 years and the kids that kind of miss all the points? Mm-hmm. And like, what is that percentage? And I can tell what you do to try to encourage it, but sometimes it's not encouragement barriers. There's actually other systematic barriers that we don't know about.
And one of the things I wanted to mention is, with the inclusion of 5th grade a couple years ago, we really did want to take a look at our activities offerings, because previously you have the kids come in 6th grade, sports is just 1 year away. Well, now sports are 2 years away, with the exception of cross country. Shout out to cross country, who leaves the home meets open for all ages, which is really a great opportunity for students to feel connected, especially in the fall when they're transitioning in. The counselors really do a lot around the students that maybe try something and then don't want it, or communicating with home, and really try to expand our view of, okay, what are the offerings that we have, what are the kids that are not necessarily connecting to an offering, and then why? Because sometimes the barriers are time, right? We have very busy kids, and sometimes the thought of not being home, to whether it's to take care of a younger sibling, to get ready for a club practice or something like that, is so stressful or so worrisome to them that it's not a matter of they don't want to participate. It's just there are, part of middle school is learning time management and prioritization too, and learning what is it that you want to spend your time with, and sometimes those outside activities take the precedent of those that are inside the school.
The other thing that we're trying to do is make sure that if they can't commit to something that is a season long, like the volleyball tournament, to give kids an opportunity that are single day experiences so that there is something that they can come to, that they can be a part of. Since you were there last night, you know how well attended the volleyball tournament is, and I know that this is something that is also done at Blackrock, that those singular day experiences, start day, the volleyball tournament, really draw in other students that may not have the ability or time to commit to an athletic program or a club.
I think that's great. I think the exposure to these levels is so important too, because it could be something you want to do as a recreation and not like a competitive sport, because not everybody's competitive.
Right.
I know that's shocking, but sometimes people they like to run, but they don't want to go to a
Right.
race. Like it's very different. Thank you so much. I will say both of my kids loved their middle school experience and got so much exposure. And I just want to shout out again that you're doing it at the middle school level. I know it also happens at the high school level, giving kids the tools to say, this is how you advocate for yourself and advocate and talk a teacher into being your teacher guide, because it's really important. And then they talk to their friends in it, and that is so many skills to get a new club or a new activity together. And sometimes it doesn't work, but I've watched over the years you integrate ways that the kids can do it, even if there isn't a threshold. They can be like a gathering. I know they did it at the high school level with Reach for a climbing club, so it wasn't enough, and with all the issues, but the kids still met once a month at Reach and still did the activity. So that exposure is really important. Thank you.
Thank you.
I thank you. I echo all the appreciation for all you do. And I had a couple of questions. You were talking about, I do appreciate that you're looking at and all the different types of sports. And you talk about the IE efficiencies. How does that work?
Essentially, like I&E, our intervention and enrichment period at the end of the day, used to be learn, it's called, I can't recall what it's called, advisory. Is usually used for remediation and enrichment for students in an academic setting. We can utilize our scheduling software, which is Efficiency, to allow opportunities for students who maybe don't need intervention and enrichment at that time, or can find it at other times when working with their regular education teachers or special education teachers. We can find opportunities for them to explore activities maybe that are, within their realm of interest. So at Blackrock, for example, we've utilized Efficiency at the beginning of the year when maybe we don't have academic intervention and enrichment needs at the front of the year, to open up clubs and activities and interests. So students can then sign up through the Efficiency platform to then go to a specific room with a teacher who might be there to take information or consider sponsoring a given activity or a club.
That sounds great. And that's across all the schools? Great.
Mel, the kids, I know the kids every day get to pick where they're going for INE. So,
Oh, okay. Yeah, see, I haven't
if
known
there's
that they-
like different options available, they could say like, oh, today I want to go to Dr. Lloyd. Oh, today I want to check out what's going on in the gym. So it's a lot of choice, and
That's
they can
so
tap
much better
into
than
their
when my
interest.
daughter was going
Yeah.
through middle school. So, yeah, she graduated a few years. I have a lot of Mr. Lloyd stories. Yeah, good. Nice to put the face to the name. She really enjoyed you for history. And, yeah, and then you were talking about Schoolology. Can you remind me again what that is?
So Schoology is our online platform that teachers use for homework assignments, et cetera. We have opened that up to every kid in the building. So this way, for the athletics page in terms of, or activities, there's a direct link for every parent and student to see the calendar that every team is using, the meeting dates of every club. So this way, it gives us another avenue of communicating with students on a one-to-one level and parents on a one-to-one level, so that there is some information about when clubs are meeting, how often they're meeting, trips that they might be taking, games that might be taking place. So this way, It's another level of digital sports, Schoology, Facebook, Instagram, all of our various forms of social media that are used to communicate with parents, the SMORE, et cetera.
Oh, that's great, and I was glad to hear, I think you said at Welsh Valley, you've got them hooked into the HSA websites that are, I think is that still using Membership Toolkit and?
It's not an HSA membership or a website. We, as a school, run, we call it our parent portal or our parent website.
Oh, it's
so
different.
it has a variety of important information just about the school in general, and then we link our announcements to that. So it's a one-stop shop for parents, whether it be about schedule, announcements, upcoming activities, things like that.
And but we do have, at both Black Rock and Welsh Valley, we have consistent conversations with our HSA about what is coming up so that they can update their newsletters, Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's important, because I think you have to hit the parents with multiple different ways of communication. Now, remind me again, too, do middle schools have late buses? Great, so more transportation, and shout out, okay. Thank you, that's all my questions, and keep up the good work.
Yeah, I have a question. I have a couple questions. Thank you very much. I still have elementary age students, so they haven't been graced by you yet, but I'm excited. So one of my questions is there a minimum for a club to run or a sport to run? Is there a minimum number of students?
So depending on the sport, there are minimums. If this was baseball or softball, you need at least 9 people to be able to take the
Right.
field. We are also looking to try and make sure that those minimums are met to make sure the kids are safe, right? That's the first and foremost thing that we're concerned with. And so depending on the sport, there is a minimum that's needed. Clubs are a little bit different in terms of the interest level. I'll let Mr. Hunter talk about that since you seem ready.
Sure. Yeah, we do try, although there's no official minimum, we do try to keep it to around 10 students through attrition and whatnot. And some of these clubs are very niche clubs, such as chess club or whatnot. And as both of our ADs and Mr. Devine said, like, we have so many kids that are involved in repeat activities. Some of them go to certain meetings of certain clubs and not
Certain
others.
times, yeah.
But we do try to keep it right around a minimum of 10. I know this is the same for all 3 middle schools, but we have our drama department is probably the most popular club amongst all 3 schools. They have well over 100 in all their productions.
So is there a maximum either? Like, does that happen with population
So
management?
I know I alluded to sometimes we do need to cut in sports. Basketball is one example where there's a maximum. Volleyball, and I know in the past in certain cases we have even had practice teams, although that brings a whole other host of issues.
Sure.
But again, the goal is inclusion as long as we can afford it fiscally.
As far as a maximum, I think it's all about making sure that the students still feel involved, right? So I think it depends on what the club is. Like, for example, Mr. Hunter mentioned our school play. This year, we have a population of 800 in Welsh Valley, and 150 of them were part of the school play.
That's so awesome.
Which is, better than 1 in 6, right?
Yep.
In that, with the adult support there and the different opportunities that the play provides, that's a manageable number, even though it is a little high. Something like a games club with 150 kids obviously wouldn't be.
Right.
So it really does depend on the actual activity itself, and just making sure that we want the kids, the whole purpose of the activity is so the kids feel like a part of the community and feel like they belong. So however we can make that happen, given the numbers that we have, that's what we try to shoot for.
I have a couple other questions, sorry. Are there any activities that are kind of, all the grades are combined, or is everything sort of by grade?
I mean, there's several activities, I think, across all 3 middle schools where 5th through 8th graders
Are together.
The only real dividing line that ever comes up is typically the PIAA sports, because we're constrained to 7th and 8th grade.
And my last question is, it sounds wonderful, and I'm curious what the challenges are that you have to continue delivering this such high quality. And I saw Matilda last year, which was amazing at Black Rock.
Human resources would be the first one that comes to mind. I know one of the board members alluded to recruiting coaches and sponsors for activities, just due to the fact that school day ends at 2:35. If you run a club or activity, you're going to be there till at the very least 4:30. That would be the first thing that came to mind as a barrier.
Yeah, I think, especially this year, as we've transitioned from the start and dismissal times at the middle school, I think we're kind of working through the process of how to manage the personnel issue right now. And it's too early, I would say. I think Dr. Lloyd would agree. It's too early to kind of put a real finger on where the issue might be and how we can completely address it. But I think supervision is probably our biggest hurdle year to year.
Thank you.
All right, this has been really good timing, everyone, so congratulations on that. Thank you very much for being here today, and I think helping us get some common understandings around what's happening at the middle school, now that we have some high school background. And so unless you had any last-minute words for us, I really think you're free to go and get back to classes, buildings, and enjoy the rest of your Friday. So thank you for being here.
Oh yeah, sorry, I meant to ask, are there any community comments about this topic? I'm sorry. Thank you.
No, that's okay. I had to comment that I was originally coming today to talk about whether or not we could apply more rigor.
You need to name and where you live.
I'm sorry. My name's Tanya Schreiber. I live in Penwyn. And originally I came to this meeting because I wanted to ask whether or not we could bring kind of more expertise and rigor to the 90 minutes that we were allocating to policies once a month for this school district. We just spent over 30 minutes on something that isn't even on the agenda. We have 87 pages here to discuss when it comes to policy, and we just spent 30 minutes on something that wasn't announced to the public, that no one knew was going to happen today, and that was probably better suited to facilities. And I would hope all of you are willing to spend the time it takes to get through this 87 minutes instead of clocking out at 10:30 today. And I hope that everything that's in this packet gets the same level of dedication, diligence, and expertise that I just saw you bring for extracurriculars. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and we can definitely take your feedback into consideration. I do also want to name that this was a continuation from our policy meeting last month, where we stated we would be bringing the middle school team back as we were defining and going through the administrative regulations to ensure that the needs of our students at all levels are met appropriately. So thank you, and we'll definitely take your feedback into consideration as well.
I think you guys can go. I do have one comment on that, but you don't need to stay for this. This is more like a logistics thing than a sports and clubs. Thank you, though, very much.
Thank you.
Oh, wait.
Okay. Oh, you have, thank you. So don't leave, though. Sorry, I thought we didn't have, I apologize. Go for it.
Sorry. Hi, Robin Gowery, Bryn Mawr. I just have one comment about the Schoology piece and the communication. So I have students at the middle school level, and when you use Schoology and your student is in sports, perhaps you do get the updates, but when a student is in perhaps an activity, I have to log on to, or have him log on to his Schoology for me to access what the schedule is. So it's not as easy, like every week, it's a whole new thing. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you.
So and I think I captured that right. If I did not capture this right, please correct me. So it seems that Schoology, and I always say it wrong, it's a great program, is tightly connected for sports parents, but is it as tightly connected for club parents? Did I summarize that?
Yeah, I mean, for some reason, the clubs show up. And there's, I mean, as well, some of the different clubs.
We might need you back at the mic. Sorry. I should have done that faster.
Yeah, for the sports, it showed up on my login, but for the activities, it didn't. And then additionally, there are some activities that will have their own platforms, like Remind, to tell us, which is fine. It's just another, layer of bureaucracy that we have to go through and know which is where. So that's it.
We can both.
So part of the issue with that is the fact that as athletic directors, we are not in charge of the entirety of clubs. So therefore, we've created a hub for athletics The individual advisors at the moment are creating their own page for their own club, which is why it may seem a little bit more scattered. Because it comes down to them having the access to provide those to the students that are there. In addition, it comes down to the students themselves applying to that club for it to show up on their Schoology page. Whereas with athletics, we've made it available to every student in the building.
Got it. So I'm hearing potentially an opportunity for us to think about maybe for next year or even spring, how to streamline where parents can find consistent information. Okay, great. Thank you.
And we've certainly
Yeah.
attempted to do that wherever possible.
Of course.
Given the information that we have, but again, our directive is PIAA athletics. We support activities wherever we can. We're clearly here today to speak on behalf of our colleagues. But that oversight does not necessarily fall to us like it does with our high school counterparts.
Got it. Thank you, and thank you for bringing the concern so we can follow up. Hey, Ms. Herman.
Hi, thank you. I'm Kara Herman from Bala Cynwyd. I'm also the president of the Committee for Special Education here at Lower Merion School District. I just want to repeat what I said last week to the high school athletic directors so that we're on the same page with our middle school team, and thank you so much for providing opportunities for all of our children of all abilities. In that CSE's been advocating for some time now for more opportunities for students with disabilities to participate in more sports and activities and clubs and even weekend activities, and we hope that you'll join us in exploring those opportunities as we move forward with new leadership coming on board. Not only are we advocating for more seasons of sports, sports like unified sports, clubs like Best Buddies Friendship Program, etc. We're also talking about more opportunities for kids to engage in mainstream sports, even though they might need some supports in place and clubs in order for them to be successful. One other thing I just wanted to bring, not to talk out today, but just noting that there's to be mindful of in your everyday efforts is that we've had some feedback from parents regarding students not being able to participate in some after-school activities due to some confusion about providing one-to-one aides that are included in their IEPs or nursing staff or things like that. My interpretation, that seems to be more of an issue on the elementary school level at sometimes, but middle school is like sometimes maybe a isolated incident. So I just wanted to, while I had you all in the room, ask for everyone to be mindful and be creative in figuring out what sometimes is a jigsaw puzzle to have those kids be included and feel that sense of belonging. Thank you very much.
Let's see, anyone else?
If we have no more questions about sports, I just want to have a comment about the agenda, if that's okay. But you guys can, now I think you can go. Sorry for the early dismissal. Okay, so a first comment around this. Number one, I do want to point out, and I think Ms. Shrek said it at the beginning of the meeting, that this is a continuation. Just give it like a little bit of framing, because I'm newer to policy. I find it fascinating. It is such a fun conversation. I feel like it's the most robust dialogue that we have. So this was on the agenda, and I believe it was me that asked for a little bit deeper dive, because as we come into budgets and we come into this information, we need to understand the why, as I steal Megan's lines, the why behind why we do these things and how it impacts our kids. So this is an extension of deep conversation so we can understand the impact that our choices make at a policy level on our budget and our facilities. And this is why it's in a policy meeting, and it is cross-connected. No committee should ever be in isolation. These things are not silos that don't work up the whole structure up. So just to give that context. Number two, I know sometimes things can get really frustrating when you're here for a meeting and things go long, so I do hear that feedback. And I think because we know this is a really robust conversation, this agenda has always been like a rolling agenda, because it's hard to know, and I know we're rogue sometimes, when we're gonna ask one question and when we're gonna ask 32 questions. I think my MO is usually more like the 32, but I'll try to bring it back to the more focused questions. But I do think it would be helpful as we move forward to tighten the agenda a little, so we have more of a transparency between what we're actually going to get to in that 2.5 hours and where we're not going to get to. So I think, we need to do our job and take the time to do all these pieces. And you can never know what's going to be quick and what's going to be long. But at the same time, we can probably do like, this is probably what we're going to get to, and maybe these are additional pieces that we're going to get to. How does that sound, Megan?
I think that sounds wonderful. And I do try to keep it within actually 90 minutes, not at 2.5 hours, which is what I think which I would be on board with, for the record. I certainly agree that what we can do and what I've done in the past from time to time is actually put time limits on each agenda item, which maybe we can go back to for a little while. As for today and for the balance of our time, the first 4 items under administrative regulations were actually on the last agenda, which we didn't have a lot of time, and they are very like administrative changes that we have to move forward with. So we were really opening into Dr. Sautner, your point, like I would encourage like the questioning be just directed on those particular changes as opposed to opening up, because we're not making a recommendation that we do any other changes to those first 4 items. And so with that being said, maybe we can proceed with that sort of targeted approach on those items and then go from there. But I appreciate the feedback. Certainly we can try to focus our next few policy meetings. And I think we'll do that naturally based on what's coming. So, Mr. Roos, could you talk through those top items there?
Yes. The first 2 items, you don't have any choice. We have to update these bid thresholds annually. This is directed by law. So nothing really to see here other than just information. That takes care of 601 and 621. Do you want to do the next one? 235.
And as far as the 235 and 302, as I described last time, or maybe your colleague did, I forget which one of us talked about it, but this is in response to recent changes at the federal level that compelled us to revert back to guidelines that we already had in place in 2020. So this policy committee approved those guidelines from 2020. We're just simply bringing those back and moving forward with those. And again, we don't have latitude to change that at the moment. And because we've previously operationalized them, we're just recommending that rather than change language at this point, we're comfortable in moving forward with it as written.
How do we indicate that? Do we have to, at the top, the header, we have the 12325 thing. Do we say rescinded at the top, or do we just delete that off, or?
No, you just say revised.
Just say revised. Okay.
What you're seeing in the packet is actually the appendix, so the AR itself will indicate the revised date, but we didn't put the entire AR in the packet for you today.
Oh, and also that was 610, we were the first one for the purchasing instead of 601, I think that was referenced.
The agenda says 601, but it should be 610. Oh, this one little, our agenda.
So we need a vote to move it forward to?
No, these are regulations.
They're done, okay, got it. And just for clarity, administrative regulations are not required for the board to even review. It's a best practice that we've put in place in Lower Merion for the board to have partnership with administration, how policies are implemented. So just to add that additional context here. What's next, Megan?
Next is AR 206-4, which we've, I think, over the last 2 or 3 policy meetings have discussed the assignment of students within the district. This is commonly referred to as the partner school practice that we have in place. Last year, we spent time talking about this as we expanded it to the secondary level, in particular at the high school level, given the enrollment increases at Lower Merion High School in particular, and trying to manage the facilities and staffing pressures that we were feeling there by doing some limited partner schooling to Harriton. So this current year, beginning in June of 2024, we began partner schooling students that registered after June 15th to Harriton. So all high school students were being partner schooled to Harriton and continue to be partner schooled. We knew that we needed to look at how we would institute this in the future, because we have a longstanding practice of giving students choice at the 8th grade level who are eligible for choice, and we wanted to preserve that. And how do we balance all of these things together? So as we've discussed in the past, and how we've already proceeded, is to open up that choice, allow for choice as historically occurred, and identified some grade level targets that would allow for us to try to continue to ensure that we didn't grow the enrollment at, or continue to grow the enrollment at Lower Merion in particular, so that it exceeded those facility, thresholds that we were looking to maintain. We did that with some looking at 9th and 10th grade, maintaining class grade levels at 375 students, and at 11th and 12th grade at 400 students. As we went through the selection process this year at the 8th grade to 9th grade level, we realized that we actually saw a change in the trend. Maybe it's just this year, maybe it'll be in the future. We saw more students selecting Harriton. Perhaps that's the function of Black-Rock. More to come on that. Interestingly, that just allowed us to open 9th grade this year in a way that we didn't expect. So we're not currently going to be partner schooling students who are entering our district at the 9th grade level, which is nice, because that's where we typically see more students enter the district at the high school level, is enrolling in 9th grade. At the 11th and 12th grade level, we need to maintain, but we're over 400 students at the grade levels at Lower Merion, so we're going to continue to partner school students at those levels. And at the 10th grade level, although we've maintained that our intent was to continue to, if you were partner schooled, you remain there, because of some, where we are with enrollment at LM, we've extended an inquiry to families that were partner schooled at the 10th, that are rising 10th graders that are currently at Harriton, to see if it was a possibility for them to return if they were interested. So we're looking to try to allow for some students that were, families that were partner schooled that are looking to return before we start enrolling new students, which seems fair. So that's the process that we're working through right now. Even though we didn't announce it that way, we recognize that is something we want to offer to families at this time. So that's the only grade level that we're saying that new students will be partner schooled to Harriton, but right now we're seeing what that number looks like of interest of students that want to return. So that's the update. That is where we recommend we proceed. We've opened our enrollment for our registration for 2nd to 12th grade at this point, and we'd just like to move forward with that.
Thanks, Megan. 2 quick questions and 1 affirmation. First of all, thank you so much for taking the feedback from our last conversation and incorporating it, specifically around the class sizes and the change you just mentioned. I just had 2 questions. On the top of page 47, I know you named just now, as you explained it, that students would be, if I understood correctly, that students would be able to potentially go back to LM if they were assigned Harriton, but this last line says that once they are assigned to Harriton, they'll remain there for the duration of their high school experience. So I just want to make sure I understood.
Right, and that's what language we'd like to keep, because I don't know that every year we'll have that opportunity, but I'm announcing it that we do have the opportunity to look, because of where that class size is, to do that this year, and we're committed to doing that for those rising 10th grade students. If there's some, I see you're drafting something. Are you drafting? Okay, no, it's not.
No, I was actually. Yeah, you could. I mean, you could simply say unless
Yeah.
unless circumstances
Okay, I'm comfortable
permit at
with
the sole
that.
discretion of the administration.
Thanks, Ken. You get where I'm going now, Ken. We've worked together for a while. Okay, yes, I would appreciate adding that, just so when families read this without having listened to this meeting could have that context, if you're okay with that. Yeah. Okay. And then my other question, Larry, you can tell me if I'm way too deep in the weeds. But on the page 44, at the high school, we still have it that it's grade level targets in middle and high school. And I just want to understand why we can't change it to specific classes or would be open to that. And what I mean by that is if you have a 10th grader coming in, but let's say because of what they've taken in 9th grade and their course continuum, it is possible that you could have room at LM in the classes that they need to be on track for graduation versus just a grade level target because of rostering. So I know it's complicated, but I just want to be sure we're looking at every single student's individual needs, because you could have a 10th grader that's taking all 11th grade classes. There could be a room in the 11th grade. What? Or
There's not
close to
currently.
it. But close to it. Like if you were in, I don't know, I don't need to like do a model schedule, but it could be like English 2 is filled, but like chemistry, AP, like whatever the other, they're in calculus are not. So at high school, I just don't, I see there to be much more flexibility in the rostering, that the grade level targets don't track with me, why that is the defining characteristic, if we would let someone in or not. Fellow high school principal.
Absolutely. I understand what you're saying, and I understand. I think the question with you guys is, do you want to open that to classes, or do you want to just keep it where the entire freshman or sophomore class has a certain number? That's the policy decision that you have to make. But what you're saying, Anna, is true, absolutely, because students, take different courses, and different courses are open and closed. So I think that's where you guys are coming in.
I would like to have some time to think through that a little bit. I think managing that would be challenging, and it could result in some unintentional impacts where some students get the opportunity and some students don't. So I just I'd like to think through that a little bit more. I'm not
No, of course,
but I think that
and I understand every decision we make has trade-offs, so
Yeah.
it's just a different perspective, and I'm open to either way, just want to be clear on how we're thinking about it if it comes up on an individual case for students.
Yeah, and I'd just like to reiterate, I think we're very mindful about the impact. I said this last time, it's not lost on us that this is an impact on families, and we do try to navigate it with a lot of sensitivity. So, I feel like I need to say that. We try to handle these cases with care.
Thank you. So I have a question as well around the target class sizes. I want to advocate a little bit for the young. Obviously, I understand why this is with high school. I understand that part. But the K through 4 classes are at their caps currently. So they're all, 4th is at 26 kids in different schools. And I mean, I shouldn't say all schools, but that I know at least 2 schools, they're at 26 kids per class. Speaking to parents and staff. So I would just like to kind of advocate for considering reducing the class sizes in elementary, because we know that smaller class sizes help to improve outcomes. And when we talk about really ensuring that we set students up for success, I think that would be a good thing to consider. And also comparing best practices across some of our neighboring districts that we want to aspire to reach their levels of achievement. I think we need to consider that as well. So if we could clarify a little bit more about what our targets are. I don't know if that is something we want to put in the policy or not, if that's too. But, I mean.
Because it fluctuates.
Yeah. Still, I think it's something to consider that we, this is an opportunity to look at that.
They're not expressed explicitly in here, nor have they ever been in our policy. And I shared some information about the ways in which we have shared those targets, and obviously, like what we've been talking about in a lot of different areas. This is connected to, the budget and so forth. So whatever the committee would like to do as far as moving that forward, I'm open to. But I think it's balanced with the
Of course,
fiscal
yeah.
constraints that.
Of course, I just want to advocate for that as considering that there are of course going to be trade-offs and things to consider. Student, success, early intervention is always a good payoff. So I just wanted to kind of elevate that. And I think Dr. Mussolini had mentioned asking about what our class size targets are as well in a previous conversation. So I just wanted to kind of revisit that.
So absolutely, so in working with Megan and Scott and all of you folks, I'm trying to find where it was. I know Megan put something in an update on what your practice has been for elementary. My only caution with any of this would be budgetary. Abby, everywhere I've been, class size is an issue. I've been in thank goodness, in my life, luckily, I've been in places like Lower Merion. And everywhere in really suburban, good places, people worry about class sizes. The only thing I can say is the research breaks down after kind of grade 3. Mm-hmm. So kindergarten, first, second, you're right. After that, it breaks all over. I'm looking, for example, at our high school class sizes, and they're great, but I'm looking at them in wonderment because 19, 18, even unheard of in even the places I've been. So you've been very, very good, but it's actually. Let me tell you the simplicity of the research. It says a good teacher will do excellent things with 30 kids, whereas a bad teacher would harm 15. So just because you have 15, and I'm not saying if every one of our teachers are excellent, and they are, we can endure class sizes of 22, 23, 20. They're not going to harm anything. Not in any of the research that I've seen, except K1 and 2 is where that research plays in. So I guess be careful. As we're looking at these big budget deficits, there's some room that we're all finding that we can gain some and not lose anything. I was talking to Megan and Scott yesterday, and I said, do no harm.
Of course. Yeah.
We can do this without, in everything that I've ever read, without doing any harm.
Sure.
So just kind of be careful,
Yeah, I just wanted to advocate for it, just as an exploration and to kind of run the numbers and see what it would cost and just to consider it.
Yeah.
Good
deal.
Okay, are we okay to move forward with this?
Yes. I was going to say, any comments on this specifically? Sorry, I know it's awkward.
No, sorry, Tanya Shriver, Penguin again. And I apologize, I may be missing it, but this policy, I guess it was like 8 years ago, it used to have a line that, this looks like it kind of gives first come, first serve when it comes to the date of enrollment with preference for siblings. There used to also be language giving preference to walk zone children so that you wouldn't put the additional burden on transportation. Did I miss that, or has that been removed?
That's a different regulation. That's
Okay.
206-2.
Oh, sorry, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shriver. Thanks for asking. Any
We
other?
have a couple
go
comments
ahead.
in the.
Oh, yes, thank you,
In the
Amy.
chat. Some of these, go back a little bit, I thought they were responded to already. Adrienne Seltzer of Wynwood, I think she was referring to the discussion of middle school activities and said, I remember that was said last month, but it still should have been on the agenda. She also said, I think the correction that you made about policy 601 versus 610, the typo. We haven't gotten up to this on the agenda yet, but Colleen Bertrand of Wynwood wanted to know whether policy 236 will be discussed. And then Ms. Seltzer of Wynwood wanted to know why her earlier comments weren't read. But I thought we had addressed them already in the meeting discussion.
And just to make sure, the discussion on the student activities is on the agenda. It's actually we just moved it to the top, Anna moved it to the top to make sure that our staff wasn't staying here the whole time, just to clarify for everybody.
But all at the same time, it doesn't mention that the staff would be here for the conversation. So if that could be something to be shared, just so people are aware, because I didn't know that either.
I think that's great. I think that's what we were talking about with Megan, like a little bit more clarity, but also understanding that policy has an ebb and flow to it that is fascinatingly human.
Yes, sometimes I forget that when we talk about it in the previous meeting, having middle school attend, it's not a problem to make that clear in the agenda. So I did want to highlight that it is connected directly to the student activities conversation that we've been having. So it is an agenda item, and all reasonable minds can disagree. The idea was, let's have some exposure to what's actually happening, and so we can have better conversations about the actual proposed activities regulation. So, which brings us to that point. Did you want to? Sorry.
No, I was just going to say that was a shift that we started to make with Lucy to make sure that we were having robust conversations about how the policy actually would implement in the school, and asked to have staff members that are leading it out or closest to be able to talk about it. And also they flow like this also, especially this time of year, just for prior context, because a lot of these things are needed to be wrapped up in order to be in student handbooks, parent handbooks, and other materials for the following year. So we start to put more on here to try to get staff what they need to update for the year, and also totally accept all the feedback, but just want to also provide previous context so that we have all the information. Thank you. Megan, where are we going next?
I'm sorry, we have one more comment.
This
is about class sizes.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Christina Chang of Penn Valley stating class sizes for high schools do matter. When my high schoolers try to see some teachers during lunch and learn for help, and certain teachers express exhaustion and some frustration over the number of students they need to help, that is a reflection of the class size. Please note that most of the teachers are very welcoming to help their students, but they are also human, so a high class size does impact student achievement. And additionally, Adrienne Seltzer of Wynwood wants to know why she's unable to give verbal comments at committee meetings.
No.
More popped up as I was reading that one. Diana Rogovich of Marion Station, to address overcrowding, the administration should consider an audit of the current students' addresses. The starting point should be ensuring that all students are truly residents of Lower Merion Township. The last time I was asked to provide my address was when my students entered kindergarten. Anyone could provide an address one time and then move, break the lease, et cetera, and still continue to come to Lower Merion School District.
Okay, I'll respond to these three quickly. Thank you, Christina, for your comment about class size at the high school level. Adrienne, I'm not actually sure why we don't do verbal comments. I've never thought about that, but we can take it back to the board and administration unless you have something to add.
With the hybrid, it was difficult. So when we've done verbal comments, it's been sorry. This has just been the last couple years, because again, we've been changing the way we do practice with the way the world changes. With the hybrid, it was very difficult. So that's why we went back to this type of system. When it's fully Zoom, that's when we have a verbal comment, because then you can see who you're talking to and everybody's on the same plane. It's about engaging in community, but there's always ways to go back and look again.
We actually, in the facilities and purchasing, we are fully online, and we ask for verbal comments as opposed to written comments. We find you get a better conversation. Yeah.
Hybrid also, or just?
I don't have experience with hybrid.
Got it. Okay, so we'll take that back. And then the last point on the addresses, I just wanted to bring us back to policy from last year. Administration last year recommended that we do an address audit, and we went through multiple iterations of discussing would it be at 5th grade or 9th grade, that we have everyone resubmit the paperwork. As a group, we ultimately decided to pause on that because of the change in start times in full-day kindergarten that we were implementing as a district and the strain that those would put and wanting to prioritize those over the audit. And I would imagine that thinking about address and re-enrollment procedures, or I don't know the exact term, Megan, will come back up in the future, but just wanted to name that as on the radar as a strategy.
Thank you. I agree with what you said there. As far as the student activities, AR, that we're up to on page 48 right now, again, this is a new one. I'm of the mind that we continue to keep this on the agenda. We're not ready to move this forward. I think the conversations that are going to come up through our finance committee, et cetera, are going to also inform how you think about this. So I encourage us, for the purposes of time today, as well, is that we acknowledge, now you've had the high school experience, the middle school experience is where the bulk of these are focused, these regulations. Then we're going to get into the budget conversations, and then we'll bring this back in April and probably May again, with the end goal of having something established as we go into the summer. So there's not a firm timeline that we need it done today, but if that's okay with the committee, I'd like to proceed that way.
I'm totally okay with that. My only question, I had asked this and I was just curious, is there some kind of process that the schools are already undergoing to do a little bit of like an audit? Like, is there somewhat of a schedule that is in place? Do we know if that's something that happens already?
An audit of what?
Like the kind of the who's, who is engaged in activities, how many activities are offered, specifically like by the building. I'm just curious if that's something that is. That they shared. Yeah, because I only have the Kinwood experience, context, but I'm just curious if that's something that we have.
Yeah, we, last time the high school team shared out all the numbers, the middle school shared in the numbers, and then in the update, it broke it down. From what I recall at the high school level, they shared they alluded to it, I thought I heard Dr. Lloyd say that the students can consistently propose new activities. And at the beginning of the year, they do big surveys and things like that to find out who's who and what's what.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Part of the reason I'm asking is that there are certain clubs and activities that are essentially inactive, but still have budgetary impact. Either they have a balance, like there's something that happened that, there was certain clubs at Harriton that I remember looking at when we looked at that list. And I just wanted to know where eyes were on that, if there were eyes on that, because if there is money that's out there and it's sort of unattached, it would be helpful to be aware of.
Are you talking about booster clubs?
No, I'm talking about activity clubs. And again, I don't know that this is.
We're on that.
You're on it, okay.
Here comes Vic. We move it, we roll it over. You've talked before. Yeah, I get it. Should we pause it for policy, or what do you want to do, Megan? Not that it's not a valid question.
I just was asking about the schedule of review, and that's why
Yeah, I think there's a couple of different audit items that you're talking about, and I think part of this work is so that we can all agree this is what it's going to look like across the district, and so that the board and the community can expect or ask for, like, these are the items that are available to you. I think right now what you're finding is, while there's a lot of consistency, we just want to make sure that we're clear on what the expectations are around what an audit means, whether that's participation rates, financial, staff ratios, things like that. So I think audit is a broad term for me.
I just realized when I said that it is, so I apologize.
Okay.
Just to clarify, what I was specifically asking about is participation audit, and also, what is being offered audit.
Right, and I think that's what and those are good questions, because I think it helps inform like what language should be in this regulation. So more to come on that, but I think we're in the right direction. It's all headed in the right direction, same direction.
I have one quick question too that I was just, I forgot to ask while they were here. We pay coaches to come in because they were saying that the problem is supervision. Do we pay people, do people receive a stipend who are heading the, and is it always just teachers who head the activities, or is it sometimes outside people? Because I know the coaches, we go out beyond the scope of the schools.
It's a combination. We can have outside,
Okay.
want to say outside folks that are not regular employees of ours that may come in and sponsor a club. Typically, those are larger, like a drama club, or provide support there. So it varies.
Okay. So it would be just that, so that there's a budgetary impact in that type of stuff? Yeah.
Yeah, of
Okay.
course.
Okay, thank you.
Ready to move on?
Let's move it forward.
Okay.
I appreciate the conversation. Just want to also not respecting Ms. Schreiber's comment too.
Yeah, so I know the next topic, again, where'd he go? Oh, there he is, Mr. Orlando. We are looking at our AR 713 and making some adjustments to facility rates. There are 2 pages that I draw your attention to. Page 58 specifically talks about it reflects our facility use charges and a proposed increase as they apply to certain users. What's in front of you as a separate page reflects a proposal to add additional facility use charges for level C users, which we've not historically done. And I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Orlando to talk a little bit about why we're making this proposal for discussion.
Sure. So I guess we're talking about attachment C. I guess first I go into the current rates that we're looking to adjust. Most of these rates haven't been adjusted like in a decade or more. So what we've been doing, looking at our research, our rates are very low in comparison to what the market is. Again, this rates here are mostly for-profit individual companies that are coming in and use our facility, which, to be quite blunt, doesn't happen very often. But these are the market rates that we're kind of looking at. So we're going to make these adjustments. Like I said, I think the auditorium was maybe it went up $100 in the last decade. Everything else has been pretty much the same since well over a decade. So we want to make some adjustments there. And I just let you know, we're not at the high end either what individuals are charging. I mean individual school districts are charging. So we're kind of in the middle, and not middle end, but towards the middle and upper end, but still I think very reasonable for what we want to charge here. The second part that Ms. Schaefer talked about is in our research is that a lot of districts have different classes, and some of the classes, particularly are I guess a level C that we have here, they do charge some nominal rate just to recoup some of our utility costs and some of our wear and tear and use of facilities. So I think that's one thing we were trying to see about possibly if the board would like to entertain something like that. And again, these rates are pretty much in line with what we were seeing with some of the other school districts are charging. So I think that was the conversation. Again, we're not changing the A and B. As other districts, we don't charge them anything, but we're looking possibly for implement some type of nominal fee going forward for level C.
Do you want to explain what level C here is? Users that are considered like community groups and activities. So they're not school-related organizations, which would still not pay the use fee. It would be applied to those types of community users, which is, again, as Mr. Orlando said, in line with what other districts are doing.
Thanks, Mr. Orlando. My only question I had is, have we talked to some of the nonprofits that use our facilities to see how these rates would impact their ability to still utilize, or what feedback they might have?
These aren't the nonprofit rates. These aren't level C rates.
But then I thought you said level C rates are.
Are they on here? These are the level C rates?
Yeah, for like mainline school nights, we are a longtime user.
Well, so now the mainline school is different. They have a separate agreement with us, so these rates wouldn't apply to them if we continue the agreement that we have. I think we're talking about is there are some organizations that use our facility, adult basketball and so forth, that use our facilities. They pay $0 to use our facility. I'm not saying that's, and if you want to do that, that's fine. But we're looking to recoup some revenue to pay for some of the expense that we're having. The lights are on for 4 hours, and it's not, utilities this week are not cheap. They keep getting expensive more every day, so we're trying to look at something like that. So I think that's example, some of the individual organizations that would be under level C.
I'm just curious, does that cover custodial staff as well? Are they included in that or no? This is specifically the space.
No, custodial, they reimburse us for custodial overtime if it's applicable.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's not even applicable because we have a custodial staff, we don't charge them.
I see.
Okay, I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page. The chart that we have that says attachment C, right, that chart that has changed the numbers, that's not for level C. That's for level.
You're talking the current chart in the.
Yeah, the one that we have.
Correct.
That's for a gym
That's
for
level
4
D
hours.
and E. That's level D and E, which are basically for-profit,
Correct.
non-community groups.
That's what I want to make sure everybody understands. So the chart that you have are for people like, let's say it's IBM. They come in and they say, we want to rent your gym. So we would look at them. They're somewhere in Philly, and we would say, yeah, sure, it's $1,500. But a local community group, we don't have a chart for. So what I think Vic is saying is, what's the stomach for everybody of creating one? And it would not be with these numbers. We're talking like, I don't know, but for example, a nominal, but something, just a nominal fee. Look, if you're going to use our gym every night at Black Rock for a community league, would $500 a year, would that harm you? I mean, we charge kids a fee, and would $100 a year? Right now, it's $0, right? And they do pay for the custodian. Am I right about that?
If it's needed. So
if it's needed.
If they're on staff, currently we don't charge them. If we need to bring a custodian in overtime or is not scheduled, then they have to pay for that.
Right. So that's the question.
So
Yeah, go ahead.
the question is, Vic, can you start to make a chart for C? Is that what the question is, or is it, do we approve the increase? I guess I'm having a hard time understanding who falls in C. Is it like Lower Merion Soccer Club and keeping the pool open? Are those level Cs? Or and like Girl Scouts, or like, Girls on the Run, or who are these level C users? And is the question, do we make a chart, or is the question, do we just approve the increase for level D and E users, which is more clear?
Well, that is the answer to that is yes.
Oh, okay.
We do want to approve the increases for the people that aren't really related to.
Yeah, but to be clear, level Cs are community groups participants more than 50% reside in the district. That's the cutoff. So whatever group you just said, if they have more than 50% of their participants reside in the district, they are level C. If not, then they're level D.
And these would be for large facility rentals, so like the Girl Scouts would, I don't know, a classroom for someone like that, it could be $10. I mean, it depends on what you want.
Yeah.
But it's something. Right now, it's $0. That's the question.
Yeah, so there's a tricky balance to walk on this one. So one, these community groups that are filled with community members are paying taxes. And so that's the rub. So I've paid taxes to have this building. How do we create a community use out of this building? And then there's additional costs on top of using the facility on off hours. And that's the rub that you need to find the in between. Because as a person that's been in museums all the time and people say, oh, we'll just come to your museum, can you waive all fees? No, we can't, because I have to hire a whole bunch of staff to open the door and power the lights. Like, there are additional fees to use it off hours. So my suggestion is us to really understand who are we talking about, because it does change my answer when we talk about who are we talking about. And then the second part of that is there a formula that we can apply? So overhead, 10% of whatever that formula is, because I don't think it's going to be a fancy chart. I think it is really about, it's going to be this much of overhead that is used. That happens at night, not during the day, because your lights are already on during the day, so there's no cost. But at night, there could be those additional costs. And then, of course, I think if we ever have to bring in additional staff, then I think you should be able to charge that group for the additional staff.
Well, your policy already has that in there for the additional staff.
I think
So that's in there for all the groups, whether A through E. That's already in the policy. We're not changing that. I think all that Megan's saying is on certain the Schedule C, which again, you know, it's 50% or more. It's not saying every participant is a taxpayer in the school district
Yeah.
or in the township, so.
Yeah, I just
let you
think
know that.
it needs to be more formulaic than a chart, because I think the charts are gonna run into trouble.
Okay. I want to let you, but before you ask it, I was just going to, in the interest of time today, this doesn't, if we're comfortable moving with the DE, like that is part one, if we're okay to do that, we can come back, I know, and try to answer the questions that you have next time around those level C users. So I don't think we're going to be able to answer all of them today. The purpose of bringing this forward, though, was to start to gather the questions that you have, and if there's some interest, we can see if that's something that's workable on our end. Sorry, Melanie.
I was just gonna ask, is it broken? I mean, we've had this for a while, you guys have been operating under it. Do we have the controls in place already that it's working fine? I mean, do we really need to start updating it if it's actually working?
I think we need to recoup money wherever we can, to be honest. I think we should be thinking, I totally hear what you're saying, but I think that.
But we are getting the money where we, like when the custodial, like how late are custodial staffs? I'm not talking about the Schedule D, I'm talking about the C stuff.
Well, if we're talking about schedule, well, maybe I have a sort of a side comment or a question. Can we see, you had said that for D and E, that we are not the top, right? We're not asking the highest level. I'm just curious, could that be part of the conversation to see what the top is? Because not to sound like greedy, but if there's an opportunity to recoup money with different, from different audiences that are maybe more able to pay for certain things, I think maybe we should explore that. I don't know.
I think there's a lot here, Vic, sorry, I don't want to cut you.
No, I guess D and E, the question comes out, we traditionally don't rent out our facility in DD very often. So that the question comes in, if that's an avenue you want to go down, then we can do that. Because typically we've have our student activities first, or wherever student they get first priority. So that bumps a lot of the, quote, I'll call it for-profit companies that want to rent because it's just not available. So we haven't really, honestly, really used or gone down that avenue very often at all. So, but that's, if you want to explore that, because, people do call me and say, I want to this or that, so it's not available. Maybe because, because the students are using it.
Okay, I'm going to jump in and recommend to the committee we do what Megan suggested of just tabling this for now so we can get to our next item, if people are okay with that on this? Yeah. Okay.
But there is interest
Yes.
in doing something different.
Yes.
We're all in agreement with that.
Maybe the only agenda item this day.
Next time?
I was making a joke.
Well, that's a big,
Yeah, that's a big one. Sorry, go ahead,
see,
Amy.
it's a big thing.
There's one comment from the community, Adrian Seltzer of Wynwood. Do you charge Montgomery County Voter Services to use the school for elections?
No.
Yeah, we're government.
Thank you for the question, and we will come back and.
I'll get you information.
Thanks, Vic. Yeah. Okay. No, we're not. We do not need to approve this today. No, we're going to just come back and talk more with more information.
Yes.
Great. Okay, thank you.
That was excellent. Now we know where to go.
Okay. So acknowledging we're close to time, I just want to check, are people okay to move over? I know to move beyond 10:30. Melanie, Abby, Curry, are you okay to move beyond 10:30? Okay. Yes? Yes? Okay.
And for the purpose of today, my recommendation is we will end after item A. We're going to give an update on where we are with that, our process of, for behavior support. And then the balance of these, I'll just give a brief overview before we close, but nothing that needs action today. But I'll highlight that, and then I'll also be sure when we post this the next time to explain why, again, I'll reiterate what I say at the end of this, so people are ready for it next time. All right, does that work?
Yes, that works great, and I want to propose doing something unconventional. I should have asked about this earlier. I actually wondered for this conversation, if given in 2009, we established, and it might have even been before that, the Committee for Special Education to help as a strategy, if we could ask our president, I'm putting you on the spot too, Ms. Herman, to join us at the table, just to like demonstrate our commitment to working together, and because we said that last time. Ken, is that allowable? Of course. Okay. So, Kara, if you're open to it, or whoever else you'd want from the committee to join. And I understand it's just an update, but I just want to re-emphasize our commitment to working together and what we said before and the work that you've already done together.
And this is the great example. This is also, thank you, Anna, for doing this. This is a great example of what the difference between a committee meeting and a board meeting is. This is our opportunity to bring everybody to the table and go into the weeds.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, of course.
I just wanted to introduce Lindsay Wickman, who is our Vice President for the Committee for Special Education.
Can you just bring your mic a little closer?
Yeah, just move it a little closer, and then you press the button. When it's red is when it's on, and when it's... Yeah. Let's do it once more. If you both want to just introduce yourselves, and thank you for being willing to join me in my pivot here.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Wickman. I'm the Vice President for the CSC.
And I'm Kara Herman. I'm President of CSC. Thank you.
Thank you. Kimberly Frazier, Director of Student Services, and I'm also grateful I have Dr. Stephanie Doyle with us today. She is the Special Education Supervisor for Early Intervention through grades 3. I appreciate even just like this visual sign, right, of how closely we're partnering with the Committee for Special Education. We are very grateful on our end to have such a collaborative working relationship with the leadership of CSC, and I have said to them and continue to feel like we will do really good work together, and we have been doing good work together, and I've been grateful for the positive collaboration that we've had. It's meant a lot to us. We are...
I just want to say thank you very much. Yeah. We're happy to be at the table. Thanks for the invite.
We are deep in the work of looking at proposed revisions for Policy 236, which is behavior support for special education students. And we were given 5 minutes last time to give us like a quick overview of what our process was to be. What we wanted to do today is just reiterate what that process is. We are putting a lot of time and really trying to get a lot of input to put together the best recommendations for revisions in front of you. And then also to talk a little bit about what some of the proposed revisions you can anticipate, so we could get some feedback on what questions might you have related to some of those. So, just as a reminder, so our intention is the next time that we are able to be with you is to actually be looking at a red line version of the administrative regulations. At this point, we're not anticipating that there will be revisions to the policy itself. That may change, right? Again, we're deep in the work of what our proposed revisions are, but that's like where we are now. I would say that to start out, it's important to remind everyone why now? Why are we looking at this now? We actually started talking about doing revisions to the policy and administrative regulations over a year ago when we were looking at the special education plan, which is required by the Pennsylvania Department of Education. A section of that is related to behavior support, and we talked at the time about the necessity to do an update. And so we recognized it then with the commitment to having this policy and administrative regulations revised by the end of this year, so that we can move forward next year with implementation.
Can I ask one question?
Of course.
Kara, Lindsay, it's okay to call you by your first names? Okay. Are you all comfortable, or from your perspective, with moving into ARs over the policy first? Just as a, just sometimes if we develop the ARs before we review the policy, there can be some weird back and forth. So I guess I just wanted to start with, in the policy, are there actual concerns? And if you've had a chance to read those. I'm not trying to derail us, we could also look at ARs and come back to it, but I had a few word considerations also.
I'm okay with looking at the AR first and then the policy, but I do think that there are some concerns that were brought up during our feedback with regard to the words used in the policy. I'm fine with however you guys typically do it, but based on the feedback we received, I do think that there are some word choice revisions that could be looked at within the policy.
Okay, great. So it sounds like we're okay, and Megan, we're okay to move forward with the AR and naming, just we do want to be sure to look at the policy and take feedback and revise it as needed.
Yeah, I think typically we do that in tandem. So I don't know that, I don't want to correct you, but like in our work together, I think the idea is that everything has some like overall coherence.
Yes.
So sometimes it is helpful to get into the weeds of the AR that help inform how you change language and policy. So I think they both kind of have to be looked at the same time. So I wouldn't necessarily say like nothing's going to change. I think it's an evolving process. So
Great. So it sounds like we're all on the same page in a cohesive revision approach.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, great.
Take it away.
Yeah, great. So we have taken a lot of action steps to really inform this work. As we shared last time, we've done feedback sessions with special education staff. Our administrative team offered in-person parent and guardian feedback sessions so that people could come out. You know, the content of this and the impact of this policy and administrative regulation can be very personal, right? And sensitive topic, sensitive conversation sometimes. So we wanted to make sure that people had the opportunity to talk with us personally and privately if they wanted to do that. I even knew of some families that wanted to come to those in-person feedback sessions. They weren't able to. I reached out personally and offered individual conversations. Again, it matters to us that people are involved in this process with us. We've also are working with our administrators and getting administrative feedback, and we have a focus group of our special education team members who are experts. We have some very talented team members who are doing really good work with students every day and bringing them in to do work with us as well. And then the work that we're doing with the Committee for Special Education. And one thing that was incredibly helpful is the survey that the Committee for Special Education sent out. We got a lot of really good and frankly extensive. It's maybe one of the most extensive amounts of feedback we've gotten on things that we've asked for feedback on. And so really helpful. And we got a mix of suggestions and like things that we should consider, and then questions about like, well, what does that look like in practice, and some specific questions that we were able to address. We did a overview presentation for the community on Monday evening. That is posted on the district's website under the special education section of the website. So if you weren't able to join us, you can view the video recording. It really gives an overview of the policy. So if you're new to it or you want to learn more about it, our thinking was it allows people to educate and inform themselves on the current policy. So we really focused on not what are we proposing, what is currently in place. After we go through this process, our intention, again in collaboration with CSE, will be to offer another presentation to families that will overview the policy and administrative regulations as they're rewritten. So it'll be, this is what it is now, this is what you can expect for your family and potentially your child. And so our intention is to kind of bookmark on the other end with another presentation. So we, again, are kind of like deep in the middle of that work. And I reviewed last time, like kind of like things that we have to be thinking about. For the sake of time, I'll not share that again today. But I would share that a reminder that we do have to be aligned with federal and state regulations. And one example of that sometimes is language, like was mentioned in some of the feedback. I appreciated people were like, why are we using that word? PA school code, right, and some of those regulations, that's the language that's used. So we do have to keep in mind alignment with federal and state regulations. As we come into this, if you can pull up the AR that's in front, where I just wanted to highlight some areas where, based on the feedback and conversations that we've had so far, that definitions we will be looking at, you can anticipate some revisions there, and really thinking about, are there places that we need to add additional definitions? And we also focus more on trauma-informed practices and trauma-informed approaches, and I think we need to be more reflective within the administrative regulations of that approach and that language. And so we're thinking about how do we incorporate that within. Positive behavior support plan was another suggestion for like another clarification, possibly seclusion as a definition so that people understand what that term means. Then we, I'll just talk over you. And then in the training portion of it, the training portion is pretty brief as it's written now and focuses heavily on the staff that are part of implementing the positive behavior supports. What we recognize is that behavior is going to occur. What we do before behavior occurs is just as important, and thinking about how are we reflective of the professional learning that needs to be provided for all staff, not just our staff members who are part of the special education team and part of those response teams. And so, you know, thinking how do we expand upon this particular section to be more reflective of what we need to do for our staff. We do want to continue to maintain that idea of like stages of intervention. It aligns with a lot of things that we do in the district, right? MTSS, multi-tiered systems of support. The PBIS that's in several of our schools starting, like things are in levels of intervention, tiers you might hear them. So it's less restrictive to more restrictive. And so keeping that structure will be important, but we will look at like all of the language that's in there to see if there's revisions. With the crisis management, which is our stage 4, some things that we have come through in the comments is thinking about the reporting back to parents and guardians as an area to think about. From an internal perspective, the debriefing as a team after incidents occur and how do we memorialize the importance of that, thinking about that in that particular section. Another area here, the restraint reporting procedures. They actually changed last year where and restraint reporting to the state of Pennsylvania. So the Pennsylvania Department of Education in the Bureau of Special Education closely reviews all of the restraints. And the system changed. It used to be that that individual principals could go in and enter the restraints for their schools as they happened. The system is now that all restraint reports go through me, and I review, and then I can intervene and work with teams, and then I report to the state, and then I'm the contact for the state, for Pennsylvania Department of Ed if they have any questions or concerns. So we want to be reflective of what the reporting process to the state actually is, since the state made a change in their system. The other thing I will say just transparently is that this is one part of the policy. When we talk about 236, sometimes people say, oh, that's the restraint policy. There's so much more to it. And as you see, like, we've really got to look at the whole of how we support students with behavior, which is before, during, and when we reach crisis. But this section is one that gets maybe the strongest feelings related to it. And we have both groups within our community. We have some families who say you should never use physical management procedures. There's never cause for that. And then we have other families who will say to us, I am so grateful because this is how you keep my child safe, right? And We only use physical management procedures in extreme circumstances where it is about safety, and it's not done lightly, and it is done with trained staff members. But I, while we're here, want to acknowledge that there is a difference of opinion among people, and we are not like other districts, I'm sure, in that regard. It would not be our team's recommendation that we remove completely physical management procedures and restraints from the administrative regulations because of the importance of being able to keep our students safe. If I have a student who is going to run into traffic, and that is a true story and it happens, we need to be able to keep that child from running into traffic. If we have a student who's threatening to harm themselves or banging their head on the desk, on the wall, it happens, and we need to be able to keep that child safe. And so more conversation when we come back together, but I just thought it was important to put that forward while we're having a general conversation here today. The next section, the calming room, this is another big one, yes.
Can I just pause? I know I'm putting Lindsay and Kara on the spot. Is there anything you want to add to what Ms. Frazier already shared before she moves on to the next section? Okay, yeah, okay.
So another section of the administrative regulations that get strong emotional feedback, right, and strong feelings is the calming room. Currently, there is only one board-approved calming room. It is presently at Marion Elementary. We have been working really closely with the team. I'm glad Stephanie was able to join us today because she works really closely at Marion. Our recommendation is to the board is that we actually remove the calming room from administrative regulations. What we have set up, and in lieu of that, what we'd like to memorialize is the team that's presently in place now at Marion, and actually in our other emotional support programs, K-12, have established like a 2-classroom system. So there's 2 side-by-side classrooms. There's one for the core instructional space, and then there's another classroom that they're using for regulation. It's where they go in and they do groups and they teach regulation strategies, and they have sensory objects and items that can help support with that. And it becomes the safe place for that child to learn skills and strategies, and then have the place where they receive that instruction to be able to implement those strategies. So our recommendation is the removing of the calming room as it's written and as it stands. And it's actually not in use this year because they've been able to come up with another way to better support students and memorialize more of the space that is needed to be able to support students. So that will be another recommendation that we'll be bringing forward.
Sorry, Kim, I want to be sure that I follow this.
Sure.
and how our process is, Megan, because I know we're not going through like a red line version of this today. Is the idea to just talk through the proposed changes and get other thoughts, or just share the headline recommendations? I just want to make sure that I understand how we're operating this.
Yeah, I think the idea was, as a result of the feedback we received and the process that's been followed, here's where we are in terms of the recommendation. This isn't like feedback today, yes, and you'll see this begin to get memorialized as like sort of the headlines of those thoughts and changes.
Okay.
I think this is where you're going, but I just want to make sure. So I don't know if you want to turn loose the Kraken on feedback today, to say that in the funniest way, because there's so much that I have redlined that the whole thing is orange with comments on it. And so I wonder, like this top line pieces is helpful that you've gotten feedback from CSE. I do think, because then we're going to be here for 6 more hours, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that this is very dated, and everything in it screams dated. So going back, was it 2012, so it's really dated. So I think taking the information from the surveys, from the parent conversations, from the team conversations, and I just want to echo best practices in the field. We take information from people that lived experience, and we take research data, and then say, here's an updated one, then let's go through it again. Because I think it's too hard to go back and try to edit something that's that outdated, great. The only
Yeah.
thing I would suggest in this process, it needs to be a little bit more iterative with our parents and our school teams. So instead of saying, here's the red line board, what do you think? I do think it needs to be, here's the red line board, what do you think? Community parents, here's the red line, what do you think? Because this is, as you, with all of our stuff, it's our kids. And we need to define from the top that behavior is something that we utilize in a school district as a tool of communication, and that it is an important and valuable tool for every single educator to recognize the power of our kids communicating in every possible way that they have. So everything you said, I totally agree with, but I think framing it in that sense and doing a little bit more iterative will make this be really effective.
And I think we very much support that.
Great.
That was our intent for today, was just to bring everyone up to speed as to where we are. And I think it's been our intent all along is to continue to co-create with CSE, invite parent feedback, and move it forward in that direction. So I think everything you said is aligned with what the intention is.
CSE, does that sound like an appropriate process to go back and forth a couple times?
Yeah, I think it's necessary. I don't know how else to do it, and I look to this committee for guidelines on how to do the back and forth with the community. One thing that I did want to talk about today, is this an appropriate time for me to cut in? This process that Kimberly presented last time about revising the AR and perhaps the policy, and then putting it back and forth for community feedback and contribution, is really an 8-step process, and we're, I guess, midway through that process. CSE's involvement in a couple of the first steps was to send out this feedback, this survey, to special education parents who are signed up on our listserv. And we communicated that out in some other ways as well. And we do have a 9-page document of feedback. Some of them are direct questions. Some of them are topics for conversation, suggestions, more conversational in nature. Excuse me, we had our Zoom with special education staff just this past Monday to address community, to engage in community feedback. In a way, it didn't go as planned, but I understand the reason why. And Kimberly and I have discussed this, and Megan and I have discussed it a bit too, in that we're anticipating that all of the feedback would be addressed on that Zoom that we've received from our CSE membership, so to speak. And Kimberly made a good point that it's really the board committee's job to have those conversations and not necessarily an individual staff member or a department, staff administrators, to just be making decisions and putting that into the AR. And that there's a lot of this 9-page document that's conversational. And thus it wasn't addressed in the Zoom. I totally get it. I understand that reason why, but I'm looking to this committee for guidance in, we do have all this information. We do have parents who wish to remain anonymous and communicate through CSE. This is a highly sensitive topic for a lot of people. And we have parents and guardians who are concerned about their child's privacy. Excuse me. So there's a responsibility placed upon CSE shoulders to let you all know, because you are the people who are elected to craft policy in the AR, what people are saying. And I no longer know what the proper timeline or mechanism is to make sure that you're hearing these voices and reflecting on them in a timely manner, in a way that people's concerns can then be put into the first red line document.
Thanks for that, Kara and Kimberly. I can respond with what my understanding of governance and how I would suggest we move forward and how we have in the past, and also defer to Dr. Mussolini and Megan. My hope would be that administrative staff would work in partnership with community, CSE in particular for this case, and come up with what they propose based on the feedback would be the best administrative regulations connected to the policy, and that then we would come together and that we would be able to sit at this table and you would, all four, and those that you represent, be able to say, this is what we jointly came up with, let's go from here. In my understanding of the board's role in governance, it is not the board's role to come up with the administrative regulations, but rather provide input or perspective, and that's a gift we have in this district, because not all districts even bring ARs, and then review policies and still have appropriate recommendations from our experts here. So in terms of the next process, I would see it to be very helpful with us to have a defined timeline of what is appropriate and reasonable for the expectation that CSE and administration can work together to come with that proposal for us to then weigh in and/or am glad to give feedback however you all would like that, but that would be, and that is my understanding of how the interplay between governance, administration, and community should work in its best iteration.
And that's exactly how it works. And Kara, I would say that all those comments you have, you should be melded into this group. And coming back, Kimberly, would be, this is our best example of a policy together. And then the board can weigh in on it, because at that point, the board knows that you have worked diligently with the community committee to craft the best policy that you can possibly come up with. And, you know, if we want to start picking that apart, well, that's another issue and another problem, but at least the board would know that this is the policy. So I think when you come back, you want to take that sheet that Kara had and, and get that together, and this is it, and then let the board comment.
And that's the full intention and has been the intention all along. I think what you see is like we are investing a lot of time to do this every step of the way. I mentioned the focus group with the special education teachers. We're going to be working with them over the next 2 weeks to start to get language. Again, they're in the work every day, start to get language, and then our intention will be to work with CSE on reviewing proposed language and doing that together. So we are coming to you with proposed administrative regulations.
And I would add that, I'm hoping to be a part of that effort, so that when we're to the point of we've invited the community to give comments, and so to make sure, while we may not make everyone happy, that we've had a chance to say to CSE, and then when we present, like, this is where we addressed these things, and we heard this comment, but the reason why it didn't get incorporated is X, Y, maybe it's somewhere else in a different policy. So I think there's that opportunity that I can help provide that perspective of, like, where do we crosswalk? Why doesn't it go in, and be another just observer, participant in that process too.
Yeah, I mean, the last thing I would want to see happen is that there's a parent who provided feedback and they didn't feel heard or addressed by this committee or this staff. This document was sent to Kimberly on February 28th, and Megan was copied on it. I don't know the logistics about how this committee works to know if you, as a member of the committee, send it to all the committee members, if that's something that's necessary to do, or that if staff, if Kimberly was in her addressing the topics in general, and the red line document with this committee, the responsibility is on her to send this feedback to the whole committee, or if it's CSE's responsibility. It's a little muddy for me there, so I'm looking for some guidance on that as well. But this document, Dr. Mussolini, just so you know, has been in the hands of people on this committee since February 28th, so hopefully that's plenty of time for review and incorporation. As Kimberly has said, she's already, started that process and appreciated the feedback.
So wasn't it I'm just...
There's a difference, right? Like, we're still in the process of getting to a place where we have drafted administrative regulations for review. We're still in the dialogue and digging into the work, right? The presentation that we did on Monday was to help educate and inform and help people understand. We would not have been able to address in that forum every suggestion, every requested change. We used it more as a format of inform and educate and know that we give serious consideration and take serious note of every suggestion that was made within the feedback that was given to us.
Great. I just wanted to add, thank you for doing this. Well done. And we're going to just clip that video of you explaining how a board works because it's a great board 101. Megan, I think it's wonderful that you'll be a part of this conversation because, again, the holistic view of policy is really important. Get where we are in the beginning phases. I think for, trust and transparency always works out when we're showing what our work. So I think having a timeline with these are the big bucket stages. We don't have to go into the weeds, but like everybody knows this is what we're doing. This is how long it's going to take. These are the interplay materials that we're going to do. So we know we're in phase 1 of 5 phases, ballparking that. That could be totally wrong. I think that would be really helpful. So we're all on the same page. It's just like Schoology. We need a version for ourselves as well. Real quick, 2 things just to think through this process. I just want to kind of like hit a drumbeat of what Kara shared is not everybody feels comfortable doing it in a meeting and will not feel comfortable at this table doing it. And so I think just ensuring that that process has anonymous feedback tools and mechanisms. As you said that, and I think that's unbelievably true, and it is a really emotional, which you shared. And so how do we make sure we respect people? And also, not everybody can come at Friday at 9 a.m. So other ways that we can engage and be thoughtful about the process of respecting community. The other person I'd like to put at the table in this review process, and Kimberly, this is really for you and your team to say, and maybe suggestions from CSE, where do we feel that an expert coming in from the outside would be a good lens to put over top of this? Like, I think of Temple Institute of Disabilities. We have some of the best institutions in the country here in Philadelphia region. I think about a certified FBA, because that is a different mindset, the way they do things, which I always love because they're nerdy data people. Or and again, these are just suggestions, or somebody that is really going to bring that unique skill set that you don't have, or not that you don't have, but that you want like an outsider from the balcony looking at things to kind of check us. So we're doing best practices for the field and not just best practices for us.
Yeah, and yes, I agree with you, and we actually have already had a expert that we work with through one of our intermediate units do that review and provide suggestions, so we have already done that.
I think having that in the transparent process will make sure everybody's aware that we're following this. Thanks.
Sorry, excuse me, so I was just gonna add, sorry, I don't know why I'm choking, but I would hold us back on then even sharing the proposed changes until we have more of that process. Because when you're saying the things, I imagine that there might be people in the feedback that say they do want a calming room or have another, maybe they don't, I don't know, but I don't want this to become a binary of like the district versus CSE. I want it to be very collaborative, and so until we're to that place, and I defer to you, Dr. Mussolini, about what the appropriate timeline is for drafts, given other responsibilities, but
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, we'd have to get to Kimberly and.
May I? If, based on this conversation, when I think about the extent of time and work it takes to do that collaboration well, to come back here in April with a proposed new administrative regulation, I think might be challenging if we want it to be fully vetted through the community part of it first. May, absolutely doable. I think my one hope, one thing I think we all have to prioritize is trying to wrap this up by the end of the year, because it will inform how we start the school year next year, what training we provide to staff. So I think that will be an important piece if we're able to do that. But May is absolutely realistic if we take that lens.
That's great, May or June. I mean, look, it's March right now. This isn't going to start tomorrow. We all know that this is really for next year, right? I mean, this is to kick off the new school year. So I would say and advise the board, there's not a rush, except that you certainly want it by June, July, definitely, without a doubt, but April, no. So I think you take your time, and Curry's suggestion I thought was excellent. We've tried as much as we could when these type of expert things come in to get other viewpoints. And so do that. Take your time. And I don't think we're in that kind of, like I said, it's not starting tomorrow. So
What would be great is if we could stay on that timeline to do it, the first review of that in May, because then we could get your feedback, and if we need to come back, it gives us time to be able to do that before the end of the year. That would be my thinking.
The only other suggestion, if I could add one too, to all of those great suggestions, and I just heard it, it was in my head, is our superintendent will be starting, Dr. Fincranelli will be starting in April, so that would be a great opportunity to also bring him into the process, wherever the process is, whichever stage. Especially with his special ed. He's a special ed background as well, so hopefully he'll be able to.
And Karen, Lindsay, do you think that timeline is appropriate or doable given the amount of feedback from families, and or is there an urgency sooner? I just want to understand your perspective.
I do. I'm a little concerned about June being the end of our school year and doing the first red line in May. I don't know that you'll accomplish it by the end of the school year, but that's not our goal. Our goal is to completely think out this process and revise it to meet its need. It hasn't been revised since 2012, so it's an important, and it's, as we've discussed, a sensitive document that deserves the time.
And what I would offer, which you might not like this, we usually.
Did you want to add a July meeting?
I did. I was going to say, I was going to say administrators, those of us that are working on this are 12-month employees. So there's no reason we can't, if we're volunteers, but they're 12-month employees. There's no reason we couldn't work on this. And I think from a staff training, it's clear we're going to need staff training on the iteration of this either way. So for a planning perspective, for the start of the school year, like, let's bake that into our schedule and plans, and then we can figure out the what as it's revised, and maybe that might meet our needs a little bit more.
Facilities and purchasing goes 12 months a year, so join us.
There you go.
I actually, one thing that I was wondering, I've not heard alumni families mentioned, and they are very strong opinions about how things happen, and are they being contacted, and are they being brought into this thing? I think it's very important they be included.
Oh, okay. Do you want to do comments first, then I can wrap it up? I was going to, yes, begin the wrap-up of today's meeting, and understood. And I think, well, before the wrap-up, let me add that I think it's possible, as if we're strategic about the agenda, is to make May's policy meeting only that. So just wanted to put that out there as we're thinking about what questions people have today. We can just maybe try to strategize, so that's the only agenda item for that particular day.
And also, just the note on these meetings, everybody can come to the committee meetings and the board meetings to do this. So also, as long as alumni are aware and we're transparent about the process we're following, it is also an open mic for people, all the 62,000 members of the community.
And if I may be, just in closing, on our end, our leadership teams meet regularly, and we do have a meeting scheduled for next week. So it's like good timing that we'll be able to talk through a little bit more our timelines and everything, and have that back to you. So for the good of the community. Yep.
Are there community members? Yes, Ms. Schreiber, thank you for your patience.
This has mostly been covered, but there was in September 2021, so literally the last board, not you guys. So there was a presentation where there was discussion about modifying kind of how this was handled, and it had a lot of feedback. And one of the board presentation made that day, the slideshow, did talk about having MCIU be the spearhead of this, because we're an organization that can't see our own blind spots. So having someone from the MCIU come in and, yes, take what we know from this organization, take Kimberly's expertise and all of Karen Roberts' efforts, but to have a third party, an objective party, be the person sitting at this table leading these discussions, I think would be really, really useful and long overdue. Like I said, it was 4 years ago. Thank you.
Actually, it's a good time for a new superintendent to start because they can probably see our blind spots as well.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Anyone else from the audience? No. Okay. Okay, Amy?
Okay, Colleen Bertrand of Wynwood has a question. Who has reviewed the CSE Google survey? There's one question that's not on this issue, so I will move ahead. Again, Colleen Bertrand of Wynwood, I thank Kimberly and the CSE for creating a process to revise 236. Thank you for highlighting the difference between the protective versus the punitive use of force, and thank you for highlighting the importance of training. Michelle McGill of Bala-Cynwyd, we should completely remove physical restraints. There are programs that are strictly emotional support that do not allow restraints. In 2025, we should be able to de-escalate kids so we can avoid restraints. Restraints are traumatizing to our students and families and do harm. Michelle Vessel of Gladwin, congrats to Kim Fraser and CSE for being a great example of how collaborating can be successful. This shows true caring and a commitment to do better for our students. It would be great for the rest of the administration to do the same with other community groups for other policies where our concerns are being overlooked. And then there's a question about the commercial advertisement policy, but doesn't seem like we're getting to that one today. So we do download the whole chat though, so it'll be in there.
Just one footnote for that. I haven't had the privilege of seeing that document, so when appropriate in the timeline, you all, if we can just be sure to get that. So as we're reviewing, we also have full context of what it was based on with research and then also what community members have shared. Thank you.
All right. So just to wrap up today's meeting, and appreciate everyone for staying along with us. As I mentioned, I think what we can do is be a little more strategic about how we end the year. I don't anticipate us bringing back any or putting anything new on this agenda. So what's here is what we're going to likely be dealing with for the rest of the year, so we're not going to add new topics. I'll give a brief preview of just what was on the balance of for discussion. B5 was really what I was trying to sort of orient us to, and I added the additional policies, not that there were going to be revisions to 702, 704, 96, but there's overlap in if we want to move forward with the idea of allowing for some commercial advertising, which we do get inquiries about, which does tie to some revenue opportunities. I think there's an opportunity to talk about that, but I was just, not because I want to revise all the policies, but there is some interplay between those and among those. So if there's interest in seeing some nods on the committee to look at that commercial advertising, we'll bring that back. If it's a no, we don't even have.
Let's bring it back. I just want to be sure when you give us the information, include the comments that Ms. Buckman mentioned regarding, and apologies we didn't get to it today on the agenda.
And is the scope going to be both for school to school, or is it going to cover at HSA? Because that comes into a play, a lot of HSA, but a lot of them are 501c3s that have a different
right, guideline. And so that's why, like, it plays with other policies, so we need to make sure that what we intend to cover is, are we covering that? Are we covering just the school and the district? That would be the intent right now, but I think that's where it grows some tentacles, and why I try to identify those other places where it may have an impact. The final one, policy, artificial intelligence, generative AI is a place where I think we do need to have something in place, at least something that's understood by the public on the timeline of ideally by the end of this year. So again, we can do some training around it as we enter into next year. We have a small committee internally working on it. We're building in some student voice to those conversations. So I'll bring back more about that process, but it'll be what I'll call version 1.0 of this.
I love that for that one in particular. Can we be sure to follow what Curry's suggestion was about SPED? There's just a ton of research and best practice right now in that area, so I'm sure the committee already is, but it would be even helpful to include references or where we're crafting it from.
We just asked AI to write it.
Well done.
And citations too, so it's all, we're good.
There you go. Back to our policy humor. I love it. Okay, any other comments, Amy? Okay, I also think maybe we should just make our meetings 2 hours from now on. I don't think we've ended before 11 since the entire year. Something for us to consider in the future. Thank you for everyone coming, and Lindsay and Kara, thanks for letting me put you on the spot, and appreciate that approach. Anything else, or we can adjourn? Okay, we're adjourned. Oh, when is our next meeting? I was supposed to say that. Oh, April 11th. Yeah, okay, see you then. Thank you.